Hello, everyone. Welcome to this Knowledge Days 2021 training session about managing electronic resources, the advanced topics. I am Kevin Lane-Cummings. I am joined by my colleague, Megan Drake, and we are both part of the Ex Libris Global Knowledge Delivery team. So a couple of things before we get going here. I'm just going to quickly introduce myself and have Megan introduce herself. I am a training services consultant, and I've been with Ex Libris for about 12 years, mostly working on training on these kind of products, and especially Alma over the last few years. Megan?
Hi, thanks, Kevin. I am a premium services team lead. I manage the premium services team here at Ex Libris. I've been with Ex Libris for about 6 years, and I have done everything from implementations and training during implementations to delivering premium services and now leading the premium services team.
Thanks, Megan. And again, folks, if you have questions as we're going through this presentation, the best way to get them to us is to fill out the chat in WebEx there and send them to all panelists, and Megan will be the one responding to those. I'm going to be doing this presentation, and we have quite a full hour today of content. So if you've seen the description already for this session, just to remind you that it's about learning the advanced tools and tactics for managing electronic resources in Alma. We're assuming that you are already experienced in the basics of managing e-resources and you're ready to learn more ways to leverage that. And who are you? Well, I'm expecting that you are electronic services librarians, perhaps some acquisition staff, and even trial operators and managers. If that doesn't describe you, you're also very welcome to be here. We're going to be talking about several different things today. This list specifically, I will begin our agenda with starting and managing trials of e-resources. And then we'll talk about import profiles, how to manage your e-resources, bringing in bibliographic records from some kind of file or some other outside source and importing them into Alma for your institution. Then we'll talk about some general ideas about ongoing management processes that you're going to want to take care of while you're working with Alma through the years, some configuration options, how you're going to be setting up Alma to work, and then we'll wrap up at the very end. As I say, it will be about an hour of content here, beginning with trials. So I'm going to talk about two quick subject areas when I'm talking about trials. And in fact, the first general workflow, I'm just going to step through roughly what a trial involves, and then I will set up a trial in Alma live to show you how it works. So let's start with this general workflow of a trial. By the way, in Alma, the trial, the word trial, is sometimes called the evaluation. I've seen it both ways in Alma. It basically means the same thing. In order for you to create a trial, in order for you to figure out if you to decide if you want to purchase or subscribe to an electronic resource, the first step is that you must have a purchase order line already created, but it must not yet be ordered. It must still be in review. That purchase order line must currently be in review and not ordered. Then there are several things you need to figure out before you can start the trial. You need to decide what is going to be the start and end dates of the trial. You're going to create a survey form or a questionnaire that you will send to your participants to ask them what they think of this electronic resource that you want to show them so that they can help you make a decision about whether to subscribe to it. You need to know who are your participants in this trial, who will be looking at these e-resources and making the decisions and filling out a survey form. And finally, you need to decide, is this going to be a public trial or a private trial? A public trial can be seen by anyone at your institution. The e-resources will become accessible to anyone. A private trial means that the resources will not be accessible to everyone in your institution, just the ones that you put on the participant list. And then you're going to go work with the e-resource itself, and you're going to activate the service that's associated with that e-resource, but you're not going to make it available, because making it available makes it discoverable in your discovery service. And it's not time for that. It's time right now for the trial, and so don't want yet to make it discoverable in your discovery service when we make it available. So instead, you're going to make it activated. And then when the trial is over, You're going to analyze the results of the survey that you put out to see what was the consensus for your team on deciding whether or not to subscribe to this e-resource that you're working with. These are the steps that I'm going to be using when I switch over to Alma. I won't stay here very long. I just put this slide in the PowerPoint presentation so that later you can look at the PowerPoint and go through the setup of a trial yourself in Alma or in your sandbox if you work that way, so you can get a sense of how it works. I'm just going to go straight over to Alma and start the process of creating a trial for an electronic resource. So let's take a look at a resource that I have purchased, or excuse me, that I have started a purchase order line. We're going to go to acquisitions and we're going to go to review of purchase order lines. I don't have any assigned to me right now, so I'll just look in the list of unassigned purchase order lines that are in review. And let's just take one of these. It looks like we have quite a few different subscriptions that we're going to be looking at, but let's look at this one right here. It's an electronic book called Advice for a Happy Life. And I'm going to use the row action edit here on this purchase order line. This opens up the purchase order line details page. So that's the page I'm on now. And you might be familiar with this if you're in the acquisitions team, because you will have filled out this form as part of your preparing an order, filling out the license, the material supplier, and the access provider, and so forth. Normally, what you might do with that after you fill out this form is you click Save and Continue or Save up here. What I wanted to show you is that there are two other options. There is Save and Request an Evaluation. This button might be available to you if you are not having the roles at your Alma service to create a trial, but you do have the roles to create this purchase order line. This, if you click this button, it saves the purchase order line, it maintains it as in review, but it makes a task to the folks at your institution who have a trial manager or a trial operator role to let them know you would like a trial to be started. On the other hand, if you at your institution have a role that does allow you to create trials, in other words, you are a trial manager or a trial operator, then you will see this choice right here up on the menu to save and start the trial. So that's one place you could start a trial. The other place is actually back here on this list of items that are available for review, these orders lines, purchase order lines that are available for review. And for instance, now I need to find my item really quick here. Well, let's choose this electronic book right here. It's also here on the More Actions menu. You can see there's Start a Trial or Request an Evaluation. So this is another way to start the trial. And so that's the one I'm going to do right here. Here's the first page of setting up a trial. It starts with the name of the trial, which it starts with the name of the resource right there. So just probably to clean up this trial, I'm going to change the name of the trial by deleting the extra stuff from the name of the resource. And now it just says Content is King. So that's the book that I want. We have to pick a start date. When is the trial going to begin? I'm going to say that it begins on July 1st and it's going to end on July 31st. If my participants don't fill out the survey quickly, I do want to send a reminder. So I'm going to say 3 days before the end of the trial, an email reminder will go to my survey participants to ask them to participate. If I want to make this trial available to everyone in my institution, I would check the box for available to public, but I don't need to do that. And that's all I fill out on this trial details page. And if I just save it, then this trial goes into the list of trials at our institution. But I'm not done setting it up. So I end up on this Manage Trials page. By the way, you can get to this page also from the Acquisitions menu over here, right there at the Manage Trials link. So I'm going to quick find my trial that I'm creating. And I'm going to do that by sorting really quickly to find the Content is King. There it is. This is the trial that I set up, but it's not ready to go yet. I'm going to edit this trial, and you'll see I have many more tabs of information than I had when I was first starting out. We've got the basic information, the basic details that I just started with. We also have this new section called Analysis and Results down here. I'll fill that out when I get all my survey information in and we make a decision about whether or not we want to purchase this e-resource. But let's move on instead to the different tabs on this page. First, we start at the survey form. So this is the questionnaire that's going to go to my participants, asking them to take a look at the e-resource. There will be a link to the vendor site for the e-resource. And then we're going to have some questions that we're going to ask them. I could just create questions from on my own and create a question that I want to say anything I want, or I can go from a list of questions that have already been developed for my institution. And you'll see some of them are kind of obvious. Is there, should we buy this? Do we need this? But then you'll see some other questions on here that are they're silly questions. It's just because I'm using a training institution here. This is not a real institution, a real client. But let's just select a couple questions, and that will be added to my list of questions that are going to go out on my survey. And I'm going to change the order so that I can ask the question, do we need this first? And then should we buy it? And I'm going to make them both mandatory questions so that my participants have to answer the questions in order to finish this. So the survey that I'm going to send out, that's now ready to go. I need to choose who it's going to go to, which participants are going to be part of this trial. I can add a participant one by one, just choosing from my user list. Just to quickly find some, I'm going to find the people named Kevin at my institution, just to add a couple people. We've got some internal and some external people. I could do these one by one, adding users to my participants. Or if I have a group of participants that I want to have look at this, maybe several staff members at the institution that I normally use for this kind of trial, or maybe a group from a certain department at my institution, maybe the science department has their subject matter experts and I want to have them, then I could create a set and add the set to this participant list. You could learn about sets from next time session, 2 days from now, when we have another Knowledge Days session. So I won't talk about creating a set, but that is a way to add a list of participants to the trial. Next, we're going to go to this tab, the Analysis tab. Now, the Analysis tab is not going to have much information because we have sent out 2 invitations to those 2 participants. We're going to send out those email invitations, but we haven't got any responses yet. But when they do respond to my survey, this is where the information will come in and how many people have answered each of the different ways. We can check to see if there's an alert. In this case, we've got some mandatory information is missing. We'll take care of that later. And then we're ready to save the trial details and get this trial started. Once the trial is running, we will that the trial itself is started. However, the material is not accessible to my survey participants because I haven't activated this yet. So here's my trial right here. Content is king, and over here I want to make sure that we are going to activate this this content. So let's make sure that the material is ready to be activated. I'm going to actually I'm going to double check this one. Let me see if it was this one. The historical newspapers here, just to give you an example. Yeah, I think it's because the content is king was already activated and I didn't realize that, but this would be an example of a trial right here that is not ready to go because it hasn't been activated yet. So let me show you what would happen if I tried to activate this material. It needs a confirmation that it's going to do this, and then it is going to activate the material in Alma so that my survey participants can access this. This is a different trial that's going to be run, but just to make sure that it's ready to go, then I am able to start that trial. So that's how the trial gets started. And as before, as I showed you before, once it gets started, the survey results come in, and then you can make a decision on whether you want to purchase that material. I'm going to switch back to the PowerPoint presentation and go on to our next subject, which is about managing e-resources using import profiles. So when you want to bring material into, specifically when you want to bring bibliographic records into Alma from some external source, such as a file that a vendor sends you, or maybe some kind of national archive of information. I'm going to use, again, just two little subjects here. We're going to go through the general workflow, and then I'll go back to Alma and set up and run that import profile. The general workflow that we use for creating an import profile and operating it, we go to the acquisitions menu and manage the import profiles. We have to choose whether it's a new order or we're going to update inventory or a repository change. Then we're going to create the new import profile. We need to activate resources. And so I will show that live over here in Alma, creating an import profile. So back on the home page, let us start with the acquisitions menu on the left and the import section over here. And that's the tool I want, manage import profiles. And you'll see that we are on the institution tab here. So this is my institution, and these are all of the import profiles. There's hundreds of them here that have been created at my institution, my training institution here. That people have created for many different circumstances, for repositories, for digital material, for a new order. We have a book order approval plan and so forth. You'll notice I do have two other tabs here. All institutions that use Alma also have the Community Zone tab. These are import profiles that have been created by other institutions and then shared here through the Community Zone. And you'll see many different kinds of profile types, some for digital material, repository material, or updating inventory, whatever you need. There's probably an example here. So if you want to save yourself some time, maybe you could find a profile, an import profile that will work for what you need. Let's pretend I want this ADAV Commandes import profile. Then I can copy it and it will appear in my institution zone, and then I can modify it as needed. And then it's available for me without having to create a new profile from the start. Nonetheless, I could add my own new profile right here and start right from the beginning. It's easier to show you how this works if I find one that's already started here, and I've got one created for Knowledge Days, an import profile that was built a while ago for our Knowledge Days, and instead I'm just going to go in and edit this profile to show you how it would be edited if you were editing one that you had copied from the community zone or even from the network zone if you have the network zone. Here's the key information on the Profile Details tab. Give it a name so that it's something that folks can understand what it is, and it's especially helpful if you provide some kind of description for what the import profile does so that other folks at your institution can understand why they might use this import profile. You need to define where does the bibliographic records come from that you're going to be importing into Alma. Where do they come from? What is the originating system? And you'll see there's a few choices here. There's from WorldCat to De Gruyter to some institutions and various institutions in your countries or government institutions and so forth. Whatever it is, pick the proper originating system. And then you're going to use what protocol? How are you going to get these bibliographic records into Alma? Do you have a file that you're going to upload from your computer into Alma? Or are you going to have Alma use the FTP protocol to go get the files from somewhere, or the OAI protocol to go get the files from somewhere? And then when they come in, what physical source format will they be in? XML or binary or an Excel file and so forth? What format are they? Which bibliographic format are they? Are they coming in from CN Mark or Mark 21? And what target format are they? What are they going to be going out into your Alma? As in our case, we only use Mark 21 in our training environment, so that's the only choice over here. The status is whether you want this import profile to be used right now by staff at your institution. If it is inactive, if this import profile is inactive, then this profile will not show up on any circumstance where one of your staff could use an import profile. You might do that if you're not done setting it up yet. You're still working on building the import profile. And when you're done, be sure to activate it so it's available to the rest of the staff. The next tab up here at the top is the normalization and validation tab. So there's a few elements to put on here. First of all, is there some data that you want to filter out? And the note here says that records will not be imported when the indication is true. For example, if I choose this first one of that the 130 field exists, if I put that as the filter, then any record that comes in through the import profile that has the field 130 will not be imported. So it's going to filter that out. I also have a normalization selection if I want to correct the data using a particular normalization process. And then I can handle any invalid data using one of these two tools that are built into Alma as well. So that's for normalization and validation. And then we need to go to the match profile tab here. The purpose of this match profile is when we import bibliographic records from this file, or however it's coming in, it's possible a bib record will match something already in Alma. And we need to tell Alma what to do about that if it happens. So first of all, I need to tell Alma whether the material is coming in as both serial and non-serial, or just one or the other. By switching to no, that gives me just there's the one choice of whatever it is. But if I say yes, there could be serial and non-serial bibliographic records coming in, then I need to choose separate match methods to match up what's coming in the file and what's already in Alma. And then I need to choose which match action to take. Do I want Alma to handle it automatically, or do I want to manually deal with any matches that Alma has found as it's pulling in? I'm choosing to go automatic so that Alma does the work for me, but then I need to tell what Alma needs to do when it matches. Right now, it says this is saying that if Alma finds a match with an import record and a record already in Alma, don't import the record. I could also choose to merge the two records together, or to overlay the new record and get rid of the old record, or to import the new record and keep the old record that's already in Alma. There's a danger of duplication if I do that, but that may be a choice if you don't want to take a chance on losing information that's already there. If I choose merge or overlay, then I need to fill out the next section here, the merge overlay section. Which merge method I'm going to use, I could choose to overlay, in other words, replace all the fields except the fields that are local that we've created here in Alma, or there's several other merge methods that we could use. And one of the things I should probably mention is you might have a question of what all these mean and what all these fields mean. And I will explain some of them here, but if you ever run into the circumstance where you're on a page and you're not sure what a choice is how that will affect things, be aware of the help menu up in the upper right corner here, and especially this one's right here, help for this page. I really like using that tool because it takes me to the documentation about the page I'm working on, in this case, the managing import profiles, and I can quickly jump to the section about dealing with whatever page I'm on here and what questions I have about building this import profile in case I've forgotten what a particular tool is for. For instance, here, there's community zone linked records handling. If I have some records in my institution zone that are linked to community zone records, how do I want Alma to deal with that? There's a couple of choices for that. There's also some choices for whether to merge the record with an older record. And then we get into the multi-match handling section. What do you want to deal with multiple matches between the bibliographic records? We could disregard the matches if they're community zone linked records. We could disregard any invalid or canceled system control numbers identified, and so on. And each of these could be choices that you make. The same with handling redirection. And then the bottom is the important one to select. What do you want Alma to do if it does not find a match? You're importing these records, and if it does not find a match, maybe you want to import the record, and that's just fine. But it's also possible that the the records that you're importing, you're intending them to be matching up with records that you already have, and maybe you're getting some updates. But you don't want Alma to import anything that you don't already have a record that matches. And so then you would choose do not import, so that Alma will not bring in this record that you have not had, you didn't bring in, you don't own it, you don't want the bibliographic record. You're just updating the bibliographic records with some new sets of records from a new file. In my case, I'm going to leave it as import, and then I'm going to go back up to the top to the next tab, the setting the management tags. These are the same tags that you can build into the metadata editor. For instance, you can put a tag that says you want to suppress these records from publishing and from your delivery service, your discovery service. You could suppress the records from one of your external source. And if you wanted to have it only for the new records or all the different situations, whichever one you want to do, you could add these tags. Similarly, you can put in notes on whether you want to synchronize with OCLC or with Libraries Australia. And again, you can put conditions on that if you want to. The last tab in building the import profile has to do with inventory. When the bibliographic record comes into Alma, when you import it into Alma, do you want Alma to create inventory for it? There are three choices depending on the kind of material that is in. If the material is an electronic resource when it comes into that's available from this file or whatever you're importing, then you need to fill out the ebook mapping for electronic resources to create inventory information. So there's many choices here that I won't go into today, but there's including some fields that you can add in, some fields and subfields. If it's physical material that's coming in on these bibliographic records, then you need to create physical mapping decisions for inventory, whether you're creating items and holdings or just holdings only, what type of material it is, and then whether you want the barcode to appear in certain fields and so forth, as shown on the rest of this. It's quite an extensive list because, of course, you're creating physical inventory and you have to make decisions about locations and enum cron information and so forth. And if the file that you're importing is a mixture of both physical and electronic resources, then you're going to want to tell Alma where to look for what type of resource it is, which field and subfield will be shown in the records to identify whether it's electronic or physical. And then you'll have to fill out both sections, the ebook mapping section and the physical mapping section, to describe what Alma needs to do to make sure that it fits the right profile. And then if there's any mapping that needs to be done, we can't do that now because I didn't actually fill out the key parts, but that's how you would build. I'm going to switch it to none, so we're not going to create any inventory. Then we're done creating this, and we can save this import profile that we've worked on, this knowledge days import profile, and then we're ready to use it. So on the end of the row here, there is the run tool. So if I were ready to import a file and bring the bibliographic data into Alma, I will run the import profile. And because I told Alma that this import profile works with files that I keep on my computer, then I'm going to select the file from the files list. I'm going to navigate to that file. I have an MRC file here. I give it a label just to remind myself what it's for. It's my knowledge days portfolios. And then I will add it. Now, it turns out this file actually doesn't have the right data in it for showing the import, but that's okay because at this point a job would run and it would do the imports and proceed to bring those resources in to Alma for whatever you had set up for that particular import profile. And it's a job that would run, and so it will send you an email when the job is done running if it takes a while, if it's a large file. And then it's available for you to go, if you told it you wanted to do some manual checking of matches, then a report will come in to show you that in the job section. And you can open that up and look at what it was done. So that is creating and then running an import profile. So let's take a look at where we are in this training session. We are now moving into the ongoing management of your electronic resources. Really just two things to talk about here: deactivating e-resources and deleting e-resources. It's relatively simple, but let me just talk a little bit about why you might do one or the other. In this case, I'm going to follow a couple steps for deactivation, and I'm also going to follow a few steps for deleting resources. And so let's just switch over to Alma and try those out. So I'm going to go back to the home page. You don't actually need to go back to the home page all the time, but it's just a nice place for starting over when I'm trying something new. What I really need is I need the search box up at the top, because I want to find a collection that I don't need anymore. We're not subscribing to this collection anymore. So I'm going to pick this ProQuest Safari Tech. This is one of my collections that's in my, well, it's not in my community zone. I ended up going to the community zone tab. I need to switch to my institution zone. And here I've got ProQuest Safari Tech Books Online. So this is a package that is in my collection, and it's made available to patrons. Actually, I should pick one that is still currently available, so I could show you other choices in this. Looks like we only have a couple in our collections, so let's make it a little broader. With this training environment, I have different choices on what's been made available. I want to see ones that are currently available for my patrons. All right. Over here on the row action menu on the right side, I have one choice here is to delete. So if I have done my subscription, I have finished my subscription, I don't need to make it available to my patrons anymore, I could delete it if I want to. Now, if I delete a collection here, that means all the bibliographic record about the collection itself will be removed from Alma. I will have a choice on whether to remove any portfolios bibliographic records. It will no longer show up in my discovery service. It will no longer show up when I search for it here in Alma. If I have any purchase orders that go along with it or any usage statistics that go along with it, those will remain in Alma, but they won't be accessible here to manipulate. You'll be able to just look at it in the analytics system. That's one choice. Another choice is that if I need to make this collection not accessible to my patrons, I don't want my patrons to get it anymore because we've stopped the subscription, or we're still deciding whether to renew it, but currently we do not have the subscription, then I might want to not delete it. I might want to keep it in Alma here, but I still need to make it not available to my patrons. The way to do that is to edit the service over here. I will go to the service and set this to not available. And I might even put a message up to tell my patrons why it's not available. And I could put a message to that will pop up for the patrons if they ever try to find this, or that is accessible to my staff to see. And then I save it, and it's no longer going to my discovery service. It's no longer going to show up, but it will stay here in my institution zone so that I can manipulate it. And maybe we choose to renegotiate that subscription, and it makes it available again. And I can just go back and quickly turn it back on and make it available again to my patrons. So that's the difference between deleting a collection, a content, or deactivating it. I can even show you quickly the deleting. I won't actually do this, but I'll show you what happens. In this case, it's saying it's going to delete the portfolios. In this case, there's no portfolios. It does ask me what to do. How should Alma handle any bibliographic records that don't have any inventory? For instance, I could delete those bibliographic records that don't have any inventory, or I could just suppress them from discovery, whichever I want to do when I'm deleting the entire collection. So you have a choice of whether deleting just the collection and the portfolios or all the way down to the inventory level. Switching back to the presentation, I'm going to proceed to our last major subject area, but this has actually quite a few small parts of it. You'll see there are 6 different activities we're going to talk about. And the first one is inactive services and inactive proxies. This is, what do you do how do you make sure that all that your material is available to your patrons? You've purchased it, you've subscribed to it, you've put it into Alma, and you thought that it was available to their patrons, but it may not be, and you might want to figure out which ones are not. And so this is a little tool to finding which collections, which materials are not actually available to your patrons. We're going to use the advanced search tool up at the top, and we're going to choose to look for electronic collections in the institution zone. And we're not looking by name. Instead, I'm going to look for whether it is available, whether the collection has been made available. And then so I'm going to look for the collections that are not available, because if they're not available, I need to make them available to my patrons in the Discovery Service. So this is my advanced search that I'm going to use. And in my test environment, my training environment here, we actually have a lot of collections that are not available. If I just look at this first one here that's not available, we would need to make this available. We need to edit this to make sure that, in fact, we can use the edit collection in this case to make sure that it is made available to our patrons. I need to scroll down to the page here, and there's the service. And then we want to make this activated so that our patrons, there it's activated. It's got the blue color down there. So now this collection is made available to my patrons, and it's not showing up on this list anymore. And I would do that with any other collections that we do have a current subscription to, and we want our patrons to be able to access them, but for whatever reason, they're not currently available to our patrons. In the same way, you may have some electronic collections or electronic resources where you did not set the proxy for them. If you don't have the proxy turned on for those materials, then if your patrons are off campus or they're not in the IP range of your libraries or your institution, then they cannot access those materials. So we're going to check the electronic collection, but this time we're going to look for the proxy enabled for the electronic collection. Oh, I'm sorry, we're going to do it for the service. Electronic collection itself could need the proxy, but the service definitely needs it if we're going to provide that access to the materials. So we want to see if there's any collections where proxy enabled equals no, where the proxy was not turned on yet for the service. So let's just take a look at this one right here. Let's edit this collection right here, and we'll take a look at the additional tab, and we'll see that the proxy is enabled. For the collection, no, it's not enabled. We will enable it, and we'll choose a proxy for that. And then we also want to make sure that our service has a proxy for it. So I'm going to edit the service, and then we'll take a look at the linking for that. And down here, proxy enabled, we need to make sure that the proxy is turned on for that one. And this is the proxy that we have set up in a separate configuration. Once the proxy is turned on for the collection and for specifically for the service, and we can save that collection. Now our patrons can access that material from off campus when they dial into our proxy, and then no matter where they are, they can use our proxy system and access this material. So those are some key things that you can use with the advanced search to make sure that the material is all still accessible to your patrons. I'm going to flip forward through the next couple of slides to get into two more configuration options that I want to show you, namely the inventory management groups and the patron access. So I was just talking about using the proxy to make sure the material is available to your patrons when they're off campus. It's also possible to make electronic resources available only to certain groups at your institution. Maybe to a certain school, like maybe your law school, you want material that's only available to students and faculty members of the law school, or maybe you want material that's only available to a certain campus at your institution, maybe this one campus and this part of the city that you want to have access to some materials and not this other campus. In order for this to work, for this inventory management system to work, those different libraries or those different campuses have to have different IP ranges, and Alma must be configured for your institution to have multi-campus inventory management. That if you don't currently use campuses or multi-campus systems at your institution, you need to contact Ex Libris and the support team and ask them to set that up for you, because that is a separate step that must be done. And again, you have to have different IP addresses for those different situations so that Alma knows when someone is coming in from a certain campus or a certain school or something like that. And when that's set up that way, there will be some inventory management groups. And so I will show you in Alma how to build those inventory management groups. So first, for this one, it is a configuration. And so to do this, we need to go down to the lower left corner for Alma configuration. And I need to make sure I'm configuring the right level. I'm not configuring an individual library. In this case, I'm configuring the whole university, my whole institution. And I am looking for the resources menu, and we're getting the general over here, the general column in the inventory network groups. So here in my training institution in Alma, we already have 17 different groups. You'll see that there's different ones here. There's the downtown group, or campus A is one, the health sciences group, and so forth. And for instance, we could create a new group and we'll give it a name. Let's call it the super group, and it's a description. It's got some special items. I'm just creating something for fun, and we'll have this new group created. And now I need to open it up. It's my super group down here, and I'm going to edit this group so that I can tell Alma which locations are in this group called super. And I have a choice of either different campuses or different libraries. Because my training institution here is configured with campuses, you can see the different campuses that we've got here, and I've got the science and physics library campus. Or maybe I could do a library. Maybe I'm using the law library specifically, or let's just say I'll get rid of this. So we're just going to have the law library, but I need to click add library. So here you can now see the law library has been added to this special items group. I'll save it, and here it just says the special items group. This is the one, and it specifically is set for the law library. And now I'm ready to set some e-resources in this group so that only this group has access to them. So now let's go back up to regular Alma. I'll exit the configuration, go back to regular Alma, and I'm going to find a particular e-resource. In this case, it's actually a material for our law students. And we've got this one right here, Westlaw Law School. Actually, I'll use this next one. We've got some duplication going here, but it will work just as well. And I want to edit the collection. And in this case, right here, this tab, Group Settings. So right now, the group settings are nothing. There's nothing here, which means anyone at my institution has access to this Westlaw Law School collection. But I don't want that. I want to have only the folks who are in the law school in that IP range who have access to it. So I'm going to add the settings for, well, I need to pick which group, and it's the one I called super. And then I need to let it know, I need to let Alma know if there's a proxy involved and which one. I'm using this proxy. I imagine that if you had the circumstance, you probably would have a different proxy for the law school so that folks who are in the law school could log in from remotely, from off campus, into that specific proxy for the law school. So that would give them that specific IP range. I don't have that set up here in our training institution, but that would certainly be a way to do it. You could even give it a name to the Westlaw Special Items package. There you go. And then we'll save that. And now that this material, this particular electronic collection, the Westlaw Law School collection, is now only attached to the supergroup. And in that supergroup, the group members are the law library. So that makes the material only available, only discoverable to folks who are coming from that specific IP range. So that's how you can set up these groups, these management collection groups, and then how you can apply those groups to different material from a particular collection or portfolio or whatever you would like. The last couple of things I wanted to show you folks is the overlap analysis and the community zone updates. Overlap analysis is a wonderful tool to help you save money. That's the simplest way to describe this. It is comparing whether two groups of packages that you're paying for, whether they have the same material in them. I'm going to follow these steps in a few minutes over in the overlap analysis tool. So let's just switch back to Alma and try that out. You start in the resources menu over on the left side here. And in this case, we're using overlap and collection analysis. So you'll see I already have some reports of collection overlap analysis that has been done in the past, but I'm going to create a new report to show you how it's done. The first choice is, am I going to compare two collections, or am I going to compare a set of selected titles? In my case, I want to do comparison of two electronic collections. And then I click next. And now I have to tell Alma what are the two collections I'm going to compare. First, I need the collection that's in Alma now. You always have to start with at least one collection that you have in Alma. So I would do a search. In this case, let's actually use that example we were just making access for, the Westlaw Law School collection. I'm searching in my institution zone, and I found those two examples. So I'm going to have to select it and then add the selected collection. I could do more than one, depending on how many the different collections I need to compare. But this is the one in the institution zone. I can compare that with any other collection, either in the institution zone or in the community zone. Maybe I haven't purchased it yet, and I want to see if there's a different collection where the bibliographic records are only in the community zone right now, but I'm considering, trading or getting a different collection instead of this one, but I need to know where's the overlap. What is the same titles in both of these collections? So now I'm going to search in the community zone for another collection called Westlaw Next. This is the one I'm going to compare to, and this is in the community zone. And it's, we'll just use this patron access one. Oh, that's why I got to have one of the portfolios there. So we'll check that one. We now have to add selected, otherwise it doesn't get added. And we're now done. So I have my current institution zone collection and my one from the community zone that I'm going to compare to. And then I need to go to the next page of this wizard. The first field here is the name of the report. This is just for your own use when you're looking it up on the list of reports. You can see that by default, it uses the word overlap analysis, and then it gives today's date in universal time. Change that to whatever is helpful to you when you're working with these reports. You can even give it a special description. It's the Westlaw comparison. And then you need to tell Alma which matching method to compare these two collections. And you'll see there's various choices here. There's the ISSN or SBN and so forth. I'm just going to leave it with ISSN. These are some serial collections from Westlaw. And then do I want to test to see if it's available for any particular group at my institution? In fact, I do. I only want to look at what is available for the group called Super that I just created. When I'm doing the comparison, I could choose to use date coverage information in that comparison. So that's looking at the embargo dates for individual titles. And also I need to tell which year to use for calculating embargo. I can use the current year, or I could go forwards up to 5 years ahead for this calculation. And then I submit it. It's going to run this job depending on the size of these comparisons, the collections. It could take a while to run. I'm going to get an email when the job is done, but I don't want to wait for it today because you're sitting here waiting for me. So instead, I will show a comparison I did earlier right here with this view, this report, and you'll see that there are 4 different reports that actually came out of this. One was a complete overlap report, a partial overlap, meaning how much was a completely overlap between the two based on title and based on the embargo range or the date ranges, or whether there was a partial overlap. What's the comparison of titles? One of them had it, the other one didn't have, and so forth. or which ones were unique to each of them. And you'll see there's actually a lot of unique titles. This quickly we can see that there was not very much overlap among titles of these two. But just to show you what that looked like, let me just pull up this partial overlap report. It downloads as an Excel file. So I'll quickly open that up in Excel to show you how it looks, and I'll expand this a little bit just so we can see it a little better. We've got the title on the first column and any identifiers, the MMS ID. Remember, that is the specific code for each individual bibliographic record in Alma. And then there's the collection source set, and then what interface did it use, and then the portfolio source set, so you can see all the changes on that. Again, the availability for my super, it looks like the supergrouper was used for that one. And then the coverage on the other end, we're comparing it to the other collection target, this Westlaw Campus Research and Law and News and so forth. So here we've got a comparison of the individual titles, and which one that based on these coverages for each of these, you can figure out whether it's a reasonable comparison between these two, and if the new collection has what you want, or if you need to stick with your old collection. The last thing I want to show you today is community zone updates. If you're familiar with the community zone, you know that it's built from bibliographic records, contributed mostly by vendors, and then modified and set up by the metadata team at Ex Libris, the metadata librarians on our Ex Libris team, who clean up the data and publish it in the community zone so that you can access the bibliographic records for your institution and have the latest current information, so that if a vendor changes the URLs, or if the vendor adds a new title, a new portfolio, or removes a title or portfolio in one of your aggregator collections, as long as your representation in your institution zone, your collection or your portfolio, is linked to the community zone version of that record, when these updates happen, you will get the latest version. These updates happen usually at Sunday night at midnight, whatever your local time is. That's when the community zone updates happen, get pushed into your institution zone. And the results are displayed in the community zone updates task list. This shows you what was changed and whether there's anything that requires your action, or you can even look at the list of everything that's been done, even if it was automatic. So let's see what that looks like in Alma. To find that tool, it's in the resources menu over here on the left. And then we go in the managing inventory, we have the community zone updates task list. This is a list of tasks, but it is all the different changes that happened in a certain time period for changing the community zone of the material that you have in your institution zone. So this is not everything that was changed. It's just things that you have in your institution zone. For instance, we have this collection called ProQuest Safari Textbooks Online that the electronic service base URL got updated. It was an automatic update. It was pushed out from the community zone when ProQuest updated the URL, and it got pushed to our institution zone, and it's just showing me on this list that it happened. If I'm happy with that, I don't need to do anything about it. I can dismiss this task and it will go away. And then we look at the next item that we need to discuss, plan for. There could be many different types of things. You could see the different report types that are here. Maybe a CDI field got updated, or let me try this. You could get coverage that's changed, or URLs that have changed. There's many different possible things that have happened here, and they will show up here. And again, this page, the review, is the ones that you haven't taken a look at yet. Once you have decided that you're fine with whatever was changed, you can dismiss it. They will stay on the All tab even after you've dismissed it. So this will be the collection of changes that have happened that you've already seen, and you've approved, or you've done whatever needs to be done at your institution. So that's what I wanted to show you for today. And we'll go back to the presentation really quick for a wrap up. The next steps, what can you do next? There are several different things available in the Knowledge Center. There's two key documents that you might want to look at. One is called Managing Electronic Resources. The other one is called Electronic Resources, Scenarios and Workflows. You can search in our documentation, our Knowledge Center for these items if you want to, but these are links here. You probably see that hovering over this. So if you get a hold of this presentation, the PowerPoint presentation, you could just click on the links here and it will take you to the documentation itself. Also, there are some things not specific to today's session that you might find useful, like the idea exchange. If you haven't seen this, it's the place where you can make suggestions to the Alma developers on some good things to include in Alma, things that would be helpful at your institution. There's also the developer network. This is a lot of documentation that is written by folks like you who have tried new ideas in analytics or who have set up new APIs for Alma. Many different types of things are in the developer network. And then the last one is this. It's the same link that we've been giving you throughout the day. It's the place to see the Knowledge Days webinar presentations. It's in the cross-product section of the Ex Libris Knowledge Center if you're trying to find it. When we created this session and when I'm presenting this session, I have to present it for many different institutions. There are so many folks on this call. There are some small institutions, some very large institutions, very different institutions. So I did not make this really specific to your institution, but if you could really use some help in making Alma work better for you, I would encourage you to contact our premium services team. The email address at the bottom there, premium.services@exlibrisduke.com. If you send a message to that email address, my colleague, Megan, who's been answering your questions, she will help you figure out what we can do for you to set up workflow optimization or give you individualized training, help you specific configuration. This is a fee service that we will establish some plan to work with you for whatever would be most helpful to make Alma work for you rather than you having to fight Alma to do just what you want to do. So feel free to contact this group, the premium service group, if you would like some more help with something more specific than our general training applies to. We have a few more minutes, so if there's any questions that you want to get answered, feel free to send those questions in the chat. I also would like to open it up to Megan, just in case the question came in that would be much easier to answer if I would demonstrate it, because I have a couple minutes here. Megan, what do you have?
Nothing particular that needs demonstration. There are a few questions that were very specifically relating to things that are not easy to answer in chat. If I did not get to your question, it's because I potentially did not understand the context of your question and didn't want to make a guess and potentially give you the wrong answer. So we are pretty much caught up on that.
Thank you, Megan. In that case, well, I've maybe leave you with a couple of minutes, but I do want to say thank you. Thank you for coming to Knowledge Days. Thank you for coming to this session. I hope it was helpful. When you close the WebEx in your browser, a survey will appear. Please take the minute or two it takes to fill it out. Let us know how this session worked for you, whether the presentation was good information for you. This is what I do. I am a trainer here with Ex Libris, and so it's most important to me to improve what I'm doing and to make sure that as I teach more sessions that I have a better idea of what you folks need for learning about Alma. But I hope we did give at least some assistance for you, and I hope you enjoyed your rest of your day and have a great time. Bye-bye.